Today we're exploring this idea of capacity in Nepal,
Okay.
and specifically how it kind of plays out, with their infrastructure and their institutions.
Right.
We've got this really interesting piece here that dives into this kind of central question, which is, why is it that despite years of experience and development efforts, Nepal seems to struggle with getting the basics right?
It is. It is a fascinating paradox.
Yeah.
You see, there's almost this contradictory situation unfolding. On one hand, you have, modern high-rise buildings popping up all over the place, yet many of them stand vacant. On the other hand, you have industries like cement and steel, essential for construction, facing dwindling demand.
That does seem counterintuitive. Wouldn't you think, more buildings would equal more demand for that stuff?
Right.
What's the missing piece there?
Well, the key lies in understanding, the after effects of the 2015 earthquake.
Okay, yeah.
The massive reconstruction efforts that followed, they created this temporary surge in demand for those construction materials.
Right.
And that fueled investment, in cement and steel production. But that demand wasn't really sustainable in the long run.
So once the rebuilding phase cooled down, so to speak, they were left with
Yeah.
much production capacity.
Exactly. And
Huh.
that excess capacity couldn't be absorbed by the domestic market alone. And export opportunities proved to be quite limited.
Right.
So this led to a situation where a significant portion of their production capacity is essentially going unused.
So it really highlights that you need to, think long investments.
It does.
Okay. And that explains the vacant high-rises too, right?
It does.
They overbuilt expecting that demand to continue.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this issue of this kind of misjudged capacity, it extends beyond construction. The source we're looking at points to a broader trend of this happening across various sectors in Nepal, particularly those that the government has identified as key for economic development, agriculture, hydropower, tourism, and SMEs.
Right. Small and medium enterprises.
Exactly.
Okay. So are those investments really, leading to those intended outcomes? That's a little bit. First up, hydropower. Renewable energy, of course, is a global priority, and Nepal seems to have a ton of potential there.
Right.
How are they doing in terms of capacity utilization in that sector?
Well, hydropower actually stands out as a success story.
Oh, okay, good.
They've managed to build this.
Okay, good.
They've managed to build this quite hydropower capacity, and it's being effectively utilized to generate electricity, powering homes and businesses across the country.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yes.
But how does that success in hydropower then contract with the challenges they're facing in some of the other sectors? Let's take tourism. For example.
Okay.
Nepal, with the Himalayas, the rich culture, it seems like it would be a prime tourist destination.
It would.
Are they really capitalizing on that potential?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Nepal actually possesses the infrastructure to accommodate like 3 times the number of tourists.
Really?
Think about that. Hotels, everything's already there.
Wow.
To handle a much larger influx of visitors.
So what's the problem then? What's preventing them from hitting those numbers? Why aren't the tourists, flocking in?
Well, there are a few factors at play.
Yeah.
One major hurdle is the high cost of airfare.
Okay.
It makes Nepal, less competitive compared to other destinations.
Right.
And another issue is their national airline.
Okay.
It has the capacity, but it's operating below its potential.
Why is that?
Largely because of internal management issues.
Oh.
So, this highlights how even with adequate physical infrastructure in place, those institutional shortcomings can create these bottlenecks.
So it's not just about building it, it's about managing it, right?
Precisely.
And the same would apply to the SME sector too, right?
It does.
SMEs, small and medium enterprises, they're often seen as the backbone. Nepal's been putting a lot of investment into supporting their growth. But again, the question is, are those investments really translating into, tangible economic benefits?
Right.
And creating jobs, et cetera?
Well, data on loan defaults paints a rather concerning picture.
Oh.
It appears that a significant portion of the funds directed towards SMEs might be misused or not employed effectively.
Wow.
So the impact on economic growth is minimal,
Right.
and there's little evidence of, genuine capacity enhancement within the SME sector.
So again, we're seeing that disconnect between, what the capacity is on paper
Mm-hmm.
versus how it's actually playing out. Interesting. It begs the question, is just providing access to funds enough?
Right.
Or do you need to, focus on building the skills, the knowledge
Right.
within these businesses to ensure that those funds are really being used productively? Resources is just one part of it. You need to make sure those resources are used well.
Absolutely.
The theme of, contrasting potential with reality, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It gets even more, I guess, stark when we look at the agricultural sector.
Hmm.
Nepal being largely an agricultural nation,
Right.
you'd think they'd benefit from, excess capacity in food production.
We would think.
But it sounds like it's more complicated than that.
It is. It is.
What's the capacity situation like there?
Well, despite substantial investments, subsidies, and aid from international organizations, aimed at enhancing agricultural capacity, there's been limited progress in terms of improving farming practices, increasing yields, and boosting food security.
So all those resources going into it
Yeah.
and not really seeing the benefits.
Yeah. Reports suggest that a significant portion of those funds might have been misused, managed, which has led to minimal impact on the ground.
So again, a potential for mismanagement, hindering the ability to reach that full potential.
Seems so.
This is really, it paints kind of a concerning picture. We're seeing this theme popping up over and over again
Right.
across multiple sectors.
Mm-hmm.
Nepal has this capacity, especially in infrastructure,
Right.
but they're struggling to translate that into tangible results.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they have all the pieces,
Right.
but they're having trouble fitting them together.
Yes.
So it seems like we need to look beyond just the physical aspects of capacity.
Right.
We've been talking about the hard elements,
Yeah.
the buildings, the industries, the tangible infrastructure. Equally vital dimension to this,
Yeah.
the soft side.
Yeah.
And that's where things get even more interesting.
They do.
So we'll have to delve into that a little bit more.
Indeed.
You mentioned the soft side of capacity.
Yes.
It sounds like we're moving beyond, the bricks and mortar into something a little more intangible.
Right.
What exactly does soft capacity refer to?
So when we talk about soft capacity, we're really delving into the realm of skills, knowledge, and decision-making prowess within institutions.
Okay.
Think of it as the intellectual and human capital that underpins the effective functioning of systems.
Right.
You can have the most advanced functioning of systems.
Right.
You can have the most advanced infrastructure, but without the right people and processes in place to manage and utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a high-performance race car with an inexperienced driver.
Yeah, it's like having a state-of-the-art recording studio,
Exactly.
but not having, the skilled musician.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And this is where Nepal seems to be facing some significant hurdles. The source material highlights several instances that illustrate this soft capacity deficit.
Mm-hmm.
For example, during the pandemic, the government decided to implement this insurance scheme.
Right.
It seemed like a well-intentioned initiative,
Sure.
but the lack of proper planning and execution led to a financial strain, and ultimately the program failed to achieve its goals.
It seems like, good intentions only go so far, right?
Bro.
You need the expertise and foresight to really translate those intentions into something, into effective policies and programs.
Exactly.
Are there other examples of this gap?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
The source points to a recent incident involving a tax regulation
Okay.
where confusion over a simple cost center designation
Right.
resulted in, significant financial losses.
Oh, well.
And then there's the case of the embossed number plates, which turned into a major corruption scandal
Right.
due to a lack of proper oversight and accountability.
Yeah, it's interesting how these seemingly, disparate examples really point to, I guess, a systemic issue,
Right.
a deficiency in that soft capacity within these institutions.
Within those government institutions.
Yeah, so we're seeing this pattern again where these investments in, physical infrastructure
Right.
aren't matched by a corresponding investment in the capacity
Yeah.
needs.
Right.
It's like they've built this extensive rail network,
Mm.
but haven't trained enough qualified engineers and conductors to operate it.
That's a very apt comparison, and it's not just about technical expertise. It's also about leadership,
Right.
strategic decision making, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The source highlights this lack of decisiveness, in fiscal matters, which
Right.
has compounded their financial challenges.
Right.
And then there's this issue of monetary policy tools being kind of misapplied,
Right. So they're not really understanding.
suggesting a lack of understanding of how these complex mechanisms work.
Yeah.
And minor oversights, these have real world consequences
Of course. Yeah.
for the economy, the well-being of the people.
This mismatch between the hard and the soft,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like a pretty significant obstacle
It is.
to Nepal's development.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is Nepal destined to be stuck in this unrealized potential?
Well, that's the crucial question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're destined to fail.
Okay.
The first step towards finding solutions is acknowledging the problem.
Right.
And, Nepal needs to shift its focus. Simply building more infrastructure is not enough.
Right. It's not just about the quantity, it's about the quality.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
exactly.
That capacity.
They need to prioritize investing in the human capital, the institutional frameworks that will ensure those investments are utilized effectively.
So finding that right balance between the hard and the soft.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah. It's like building a bridge, right?
Right.
You need strong in materials.
Of course.
A solid, but you also need, skilled engineers and construction workers to actually execute that plan and make sure it's, structurally sound.
Precisely.
And this goes beyond just the government.
Right. It does.
Building capacity needs to happen at all levels of society.
Yes.
It means investing in quality education, training programs,
Absolutely.
fostering a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship,
Right.
empowering individuals
Yes.
to participate in and shaping their own development.
That sounds like a multifaceted approach.
It does, but it also sounds like a really exciting opportunity.
It is.
I mean, what could Nepal, if they managed to leverage all this untapped potential?
Well, the possibilities are immense,
Yeah.
and it goes beyond just economic growth.
Right.
It's about improving the quality of life.
For all citizens,
Right.
access to quality education,
Of course.
healthcare, job opportunities.
Yeah.
These blocks of a thriving society.
So it's not just about these abstract numbers.
It's not.
It's about the people.
It is about the people.
It's about their well-being.
Exactly.
And speaking of the future, there's another layer to this capacity puzzle that we haven't even touched on yet.
Right.
The rise of e-commerce and its potential to really disrupt this existing landscape.
Right. How does this emerging force factor into Nepal's capacity conundrum?
We've talked about, vacant buildings, struggling industries, the government's grapple with soft capacity, but now we've got e-commerce.
Right.
Rapidly growing. Especially as internet access and those delivery networks improve.
Yeah.
How does this new dynamic impact Nepal's capacity issues?
Well, e-commerce presents a really unique situation because it's simultaneously creating and displacing capacity.
Right. As more businesses, transition online, we're seeing this rise in overcapacity in those prime commercial zones.
Right, those storefronts.
Exactly. Those once sought after storefronts.
Yeah.
They're emptying as entrepreneurs realize they can reach a wider market more efficiently
Makes sense.
through digital platforms.
It's almost like we're watching, the retail landscape. Almost like we're watching, the retail landscape kind of shift. Those bustling shopping districts.
Yeah.
They might start looking quite different as more people are just shopping online from home.
Exactly. And this trend is only going to gain momentum as internet penetration increases and trust in online transactions grows.
Right.
But there's a flip side to this.
Okay.
While e-commerce is, lessening the need for physical retail spaces, it's creating a demand for new types of capacity.
Okay.
Think warehouses, logistics networks, digital payment systems,
Right.
robust cybersecurity infrastructure.
So it's not just about creating whole new forms. to support this whole digital transformation.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this is where Nepal has a real chance to kind of leapfrog ahead.
Okay.
By making strategic investments in these areas.
Hmm.
They can, position themselves as a regional hub for e-commerce and digital innovation.
Interesting.
But of course, there are challenges to consider.
There always are.
Always.
What are some of the hurdles that Nepal might encounter in really embracing this?
Well, the primary challenge is that this digital shift, it necessitates a significant boost in soft capacity.
Right. Back to that.
You need a skilled workforce,
Mm-hmm.
tech-savvy entrepreneurs, skilled programmers, cybersecurity experts,
Okay.
and you need a regulatory environment
Right.
that encourages innovation while safeguarding consumers.
So e-commerce unlocks these exciting opportunities, but it also demands this whole new set of skills and knowledge
It does.
to successful.
Absolutely. And this brings us full circle to our core theme today. This crucial interplay
Yeah.
of hard and soft capacity.
You can't have one without the other.
You cannot.
It's like investing in a fleet of electric buses,
Right.
but not having enough charging stations or trained drivers to make the system work.
All these pieces need to work, and pieces need to work in harmony.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we conclude our deep dive into Nepal's capacity puzzle, what key insights can we draw from all this?
Well, I think, it's clear that while Nepal has really made strides in its hard capacity, particularly in infrastructure,
Right.
that lack of corresponding soft capacity is really holding them back.
It is.
But there's hope.
There is.
Nepal has this young, dynamic population. They're eager to embrace technology.
Absolutely.
They need that, really focused strategy, cultivate the soft capacity needed to harness all this potential.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Investing in education
Right.
and training programs.
That equip people with the skills needed for the digital economy. That's crucial.
Right.
So is fostering that culture of entrepreneurship
Right.
and providing that robust support for startups and small businesses.
Yeah.
And of course, streamlining regulations and creating that business environment that encourages innovation.
It's a multi-pronged approach.
It is.
But the potential rewards are significant.
They are.
As we wrap up, I'd like to leave our listener with this thought.
Okay.
What role can each of us play in bridging this capacity gap?
Right.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, an educator, a policymaker, or just a concerned citizen. There are ways to contribute to a future where Nepal's capacities are not just built, but utilized for the benefit of everyone.
Right.
It's a challenge, undoubtedly, but also a chance to really shape a brighter future.
It's a global challenge, really.
Yeah. How do we ensure that our investments in infrastructure and technology result in genuine human progress?
That's the question.
How do we build a world where capacity is not just about quantity, but about quality, equity, and sustainability?
Yeah, and those are the questions we need to grapple with.
We do.
Not only in Nepal, but